importantly, scaling up. I call this a real success episode, and I try to feed that. I try to find large canvas or large paper, and I literally create an artist residency for individual students to get to make work in a live setting for a couple of hours for other children to see. So children got to see this young person just producing these large-scale freehand portraits. She actually hadn't spoken since she arrived in America, and this really opened her up. Here's another 4-year-old. This is pre-K. This young man, he just went big, and I wanted to see what he could do with scale. And when others get to see him, this is where we start to inspire each other. I'm reaching back into these wonderful overhead projectors. These are dinosaurs. People are throwing these things out. I love them. Kids who don't say, if young children say, oh, I can't draw, this is a great entryway into scaling up. And honestly, it's like a game. All the children want to get up there. These kids happen to be like 4 years old, preschool. And I really wanted to show you how I make an effort to empower even the youngest student. This young man, we were helping him with his spelling. We could look at it large scale. We could make corrections. And, you know, he's getting ready to do this kind of big on the side of the school. That's a little bit unheard of. Again, some young kids collaboratively painting, getting the hang of watercolor. These were large sheets of foam core that someone was throwing out. So I'm so resourceful. These little ones, they're both learning to write, to read, and they don't get out in nature. A lot of the kids in this particular neighborhood are sort of stuck in one city block. And so I make an effort to get them outside, to talk about under the earth, to talk about nature cycles. In this case, speaking of project-based, these young people were studying sharks, and in particular, they were studying the overfishing of sharks in Madagascar. Now, I've leapt to a finished installation here, but you can see all the parts. We used plastic sheets of paint drop cloth to make waves. We made the boat out of cardboard. Oops, did I lose my? There we go. We made the boat out of cardboard. You can see the little oars, the ocean. Oh my gosh, Rachel, you're in the lower left. That's so funny. I didn't even realize that you were there. That's so cool. Oopsie, I lost my ability to, there we go. So now I'm gonna leap into, can everyone hear my voice still? It's all good?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, perfect, perfect. So now I'm leaping into a high school class with international students just arriving here where we wanted to learn about each other. So we set up a photo booth where the students photographed each other. And you can see this particular high school, the kids do not hold back with getting ready for their photograph. They're very excited to come in with special garb and feeling empowered to make their photograph with their friends. And then to start moving into, here's one of my art stations. Now in this case, I got a little funding. You can see I got some paint, I got some great markers and brushes, and usually I'll work with color coding, cool colors, warm colors, always building a language. One student here is actually serving up the art materials. So here's the students starting to transcribe their portraits and things that interest them. They're basing it from their photograph if they don't feel like they can grab their own face with just free form or looking in a mirror. I love these photos because it shows many hands working together. I'm using a plastic table, a see-through plastic tablecloth here for this work so they can flip it and they can work on both sides. And they can do their feet, they can do their hands. So here's one that's really starting to fill up. That's their teacher in the center. They're adding jewels here. They really wanted to take it to like a crazy level. Paint on one side, marker on the other. And I love this project. The students really dive into both identity and biography, but also materials. In this case, this is a warm-up. where I developed this with a couple of other artist teachers, where students take out objects from around the room and they start to make settings and just tell us what they think is happening there. It's almost like a dreamscape where they're just creating what they think is going on. Here's a method of bringing in stencils for students to use stencils to scale up their names, their designs. Today, this is all about mixed media art, presenting them with as many materials just to experiment. In this case, the students are laying designs over an old dictionary. So they're changing the book page to make it something completely different. Getting back into being inspired by art forms, these young kids were really inspired by old school DJs. And if they come to me with an idea, I will help them produce it. You can see the cityscape behind this young man, and he built his own DJ table. Sometimes when I display ideas we've done, we will write it out like this, like, what is a memoir? What kind of book are we making here? Everything is in an effort to share with a larger audience. So this was a series of books the children wrote about the countries they came from. I'm dipping now back into some more like middle school age students, elementary school age. So here's a young student with a memory about a birthday party, but just using black paper with color pencil and a little collage, I think the kids get excited about a slight shift from regular paper. And I had the kids set this up in a display just to get an initial idea about how they would display their own work. And then we always create an installation that feels immersive, something we can get inside. So we created flooring out of canvas. We laid our books out, and we took a trip out into nature together. And it happened to be very well timed. This great place hosted us. We all got binoculars, and we decided to create an outdoor space inside where the children could read their stories about coming to America. So here's the space we created together, and you can see how filled with wonder. Here's an adult just enchanted, and you can see another adult seated. What happened here that was incredible was when we decided to open it up to the public, to parents, to siblings, you can see the children are very relaxed. They're not standing trying to share a story. They're in a little green space that they created. And what happened was parents started to tell us their stories about coming to America for the first time. So here's the team that helped me to install. They're standing on the mandala that large groups of kids helped to paint this mandala. We decided to use it as flooring. And so here they are. They would reset up. We got to display this for 3 days straight. And here's an example of just bringing parents and grandparents. In this case, the children got to work with the gentleman holding this tin can guitar, happens to be my partner. He's a composer, and he makes instruments out of trash. And so we brought these kids to meet the woman in the gray hair, is a world famous composer who's now passed, Pauline Oliveros. But the children got to jam with her. So this is another element. I try to bring the children, all ages, to meet professional artists. And here we are getting into a little bit of a project-based idea from a classroom teacher wanting the children to learn a little bit more about Nelson Mandela. So we used some mixed media ideas to translate his face. They did research and translated language onto these finished pieces. I found a bunch of plastic cubes. And again, we started building sculpture out of them, but you can see the language in the background. I always have a place where we're doing what I call a word storm for the children to show us all the kinds of thoughts. This, for example, this little cube, this plastic cube that someone was throwing out hundreds of these. I grabbed them. We used paint markers and we created these little tiny settings inside these plastic cubes. It made a wonderful display. So another example of the black paper and group brainstorming. It might be about music, it might be about art, it might be a memoir, but I love students to sit in groups and brainstorm together. And we started cutting out some of our language ideas. Like you can see in the background, it says corruption, but we were turning them into headpieces that the kids could wear. So this is just an example of going from a word to a bigger idea, cutting it out, turning it into a sculpture, and in this case, edging onto performance art. So here we are with another large-scale project that I have color-coded. Again, I'm using this plastic tablecloth because I love it as a medium with large groups. So they've written out some ideas here with marker, and now they're adding this red tape to create a graphic design, and then they flip it and they start to paint on the plastic, again, color coding. This particular piece was about surveillance and about being watched and about cameras being everywhere. And so this is a tiny room where I got to do this residency at the Park Avenue Armory in the city, where I happened to be a freelance teaching artist. So I worked with about 20 high school kids on this project that became very complex. I love when they can flip this tablecloth back and forth and start to work on both sides. And this was for a little theater piece that they did. They worked with a dancer, they worked on presenting ideas, and we together created the background for them to have a setting for their presentation. So here's the finished plastic. This is another great project when kids just arrive from Haiti, from Africa, from the Middle East, from Latin America. This is just kids laying down a pie plate and creating circles and just creating and cutting out circles and a place to put their favorite things. Any little trick like that really pulls them in. So this project became things we like, things we have in common. So in my art lab, even though all of these languages are spoken and kids are learning English, through visual images, we can see how connected we are through things we like and things we have in common. And then coming to a close, here's another great installation with a bunch of frames I found. And I asked the kids what they would like to do with it. And they wanted to make little selfie stations to get behind these frames, to decorate elaborately in the background, but to have a place where they could go have photos taken and interact with families. So you can see there's 3 frames here stacked one upon the other. And then here we are as a group saying goodbye, and a last slide to show how much we miss all being together. And now it's me setting up projects from home. Here's my teaching area. I'm about to do a class about comic books. And so I'm learning a new way to teach remotely. So here's a little setting for one day's presentation about setting out your page for your comic. And finishing up, I know everyone last time really wanted my email. I put here my Instagram, and you can see my arts activities there. And there's an app called Stellar Story. It's a really interesting way to tell stories about your art education practice. And so if you can download that app, it's like a magazine format. But this is my handle, stellar.co/HollyH. And then there's my email. Feel free to email me. I'd be so happy to do a presentation in any of your classes. And I know that was a lot of images, and I hope you feel inspired by some of the ideas. I can put this slide back up later, but I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear questions or comments or, oh good, Larry J's here. Hey, Larry J, nice to see you. That is my presentation. So I would love it if there were any questions or comments from everyone.
Okay, Ollie, thank you so much. Can you please stop sharing your screen?
Yes.
Okay, can you please help me with that so I can share my screen from here? Okay, fantastic. Quickly, I would like to just recognize Larry J in the house. I want to say thank you for joining me last Friday. This class was awesome. My students did talk about it till now. So thank you so much for joining us, Larry Jackson. Can I get some comment from you, sir? Larry Jackson?
Yes, you got me. How you doing?
I'm fine. So I'm just saying thank you. We have 2 presentations tonight. Thank you so much, Larry Jackson, for last Friday. So we have 2 presentations tonight. Before we take question for Ari, I would like to introduce the second presenter tonight. That is Dr. Ademuleya Baba Sheinde from Nigeria. So, sir, are you set for us? Can you hear me, sir?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you, sir.
All right.
I can hear you. We can hear. Good evening, sir. Sir, would you like to share your screen?
Let me, come in, please. Can you see me now?
No,
Hello?
I want to know. I want to know if you like to share your screen. Then I will stop sharing mine.
Oh no, sorry, please. I'm not sharing screen because I have a particular, aspect of discussion which has to do with art educators and not the teaching, act of teaching itself.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello, I can hear you, sir. That is fine.
Can I go on?
Continue, sir. Continue, sir. You can go ahead, sir.
Good evening, everybody. In our discussions over time, especially for those of us who are in this part of the world, we've had a lot of issues concerning how schools, parents, and even government, how the kind of participation or the kind of contributions that have been made to art, which to a greater extent we feel to be negative. And my focus today is not just on how to handle the class in itself, but how art educators should actually respond to the problems at hand, especially when you have peculiar situations just like we have around here in Nigeria, in which we are aware that even some schools we do have art studios. In some particular schools, you may likely not even have an art teacher. There are places where perhaps you have an art teacher who perhaps is overwhelmed with work and may not be able to perhaps cover all the classes. These are situations we have on ground here. And I think for us to actually solve our problems, there is a need for us to tackle the problem right as we sell them. My presentation is to see teaching of art to art educators looking at it from thinking out of the box and not just looking at just the issue of I want to teach a particular subject in a class. And this may require that we take art out of class. So I call it taking art teaching out of class. For us to do that, there'll be need for us to orientate art educators themselves to be able to see how things of this can be handled. I want to actually commend some of us who have been doing this. I have just listened to the presenter, the coordinator of this program discussing about the collaboration between himself and Larry J, which is indeed a very good development. But let me put it this way, that for us in Nigeria, if we really want to do this, the curriculum is not that favorable. For those who are in, take for instance, I work in a university. For students to actually come into the university, some universities will require that you have at least a credit in fine art. If you do not have a credit in fine art, you may not be able to come in to read art in a university. And in many of our secondary schools, there is a kind of a program that already sieved students who may not actually, those who are interested in art, not being privileged to actually take art as a subject. Take, for instance, if you are doing chemistry or you are doing physics, there is no way you can combine physics and chemistry with visual art in Nigeria by virtue of the curriculum. And therefore, what it then means is that you may not be able to find students who are science-oriented, who perhaps will fit into coming to university to read fine art. There are some universities who have adjusted their programs to that. At OAU, we have adjusted as, we have removed the clause that you must have fine art as is a compulsory subject for you to sit for fine art in the university. But many universities still have it in that particular, in that order. The entry requirement will require that you must have fine art as a subject. I know many people have argued that how do you bring in students who do not have fine art as a basic subject to come and read fine art in universities? And my response has always been this: how many secondary schools in Nigeria here do teach music or teach German or teach French, and yet we come in to read those subjects, which means it is possible for us to come in depending on how we plan our program. And we have been having that, we have not been having problems. It depends on how you restructure your curriculum when they come into schools. But be that as it may, if you have the experience of being in a school, you are the only art teacher there, and your students who are interested in art are probably in science or in social sciences, and they are not offering art as a subject. How do we handle this? That is exactly my focus. And that is why I think we must think about taking art out of the classroom, so that these individuals who are interested in art may also have the privilege of experiencing art. How do I do this? One, you may perhaps need to look at the possibility of forming a kind of a club within the school, an art club that will cut across. In most cases where we talk about art club, we also often focus on the students who are doing art, who are taking art as subjects. But we must look at the possibilities of coming up with an art club that will cut across. Someone encourages somebody in physics, somebody in chemistry, somebody in geography to be part of the club, so that they can also reflect whatever they take from the art club in whatever subjects they are offering. The art clubs may then be organized in such a manner that you have perhaps classes or activities out of the school curriculum. Maybe you call it extra curriculum, whatever we call it. And this may demand that perhaps we have a kind of a weekend treat. I call it weekend treat. Weekend treat is such that perhaps may enable you to allow those individuals either to have visits, to visit museums, to visit art galleries, and at times to organize classes in which you have practicing artists, studio artists, to come in and have an affair with them during the weekend. Having an affair with them during the weekend will allow them to have first contact with the artists who are already working, not teachers, artists who run studios, who are already working. So they have contact with them, they have experience with them. And their visits also to museums, to galleries, to artist studios will also help them to be able to at least have some feeling about what it takes to actually be an artist. If you have all those together, there is one other thing that I found to be missing around us here. Artists at times, or students who perhaps are coming in to do artists, often feel that they are only coming to handle subjects just as in visual art, textile, graphics, sculpture, or whatever. But in my classes at times, what I tell them is, there will be need for you to actually watch home videos. There will be need for you to go to cinema. There will be need for you to read books, African literatures, and many other things. Because these are the areas where you can actually source inspiration. If you do not go to those things, you don't watch films, you don't listen to music, you don't read novels, and many other things, you will be your idea when it comes to coming up with ideas and things like that may perhaps be limited. And so we must also expose those within that particular group to reading literature, to attending, to going to film house, whatever. It has to be properly coordinated. I know quite well that around there, parents at times may frown at their children attending some programs. But if you are able to win their confidence, and perhaps at the end of the day, they know precisely what to derive from this, it will help, it will go a long way. But apart from this, the children must also be exposed to practical works. We've had experiences of people who take art to the streets, not just inside the classroom. Let them do things where others could see them and be influenced, where others could see them and say, oh, this is what you call art. I once have an experience. Some people will often ask you, oh, I heard you are an artist. Can you draw me? Can you paint me? As if everything ends with painting, portraiture, or drawing with pencil. Some already have this feeling that art cannot be taught. They have a feeling that it's a thing of a talent, that if you are not talented, you cannot fit in. My experience so far has taught me, and over years, I've been able to tell that if you have interest, you can be taught art. It is not a matter of you being talented. It's a matter of you being interested. And with that, if you are able to walk in that line, we'll be able to get those children who are interested. Today, we have in OAU at least students who have moved from microbiology, from physics, from other departments to cross to fine art. Because all we have always been interested is to look for those, are you interested in this? If you are interested, there is a room for you. So with that, we can expand it. Then when they begin to do their works, for us to be able to gain the confidence of the parents, there is a need for them that their products must be taken home. It is not just a matter of displaying it in the classroom or in their own environment. Possibly where you have an exhibition, invite their parents. Their parents must be seen to feel the art. If they don't feel the art, they may not understand it. So when you bring them into exhibitions grants, they see what their children have done, they'll be very happy. If they are unable to come to exhibition to see what their children have done, and they have the privilege of, even if it's an handkerchief that you have done in tie-dye, or it's a t-shirt you have produced that they have to go take home, let them take it home and let them show their parents, let them wear them. And by the time they see it, they see some sense in it, that I can as well give some money for this child to do some more art. Tell them to have space to display their works at home. All this will help them a lot to bridge the gap between the parents' understanding of what they do in school and why they should support them. I have seen situations where parents often deny their children money for art materials just because they want them to be lawyers, doctors, or whatever. And it's because they don't have that understanding of you as an artist. I've had situations where somebody will say, how long do you think you can practice this and make money? Because all perhaps we think about is for you to do art, they do not see how you can feed your family. But you see, the issue of it is because we have not been able to look at art as business. Children must also be introduced to the business aspect of art. That it is not just a matter of being fulfilled because you have drawn something, you are happy. Yes. At the same time, you must be able to understand the economy of the art. So as we are looking at as teachers, as we are teaching our children how to produce works, we must also be conscious of the fact that in our own environment, I don't know of any other environment, but in our own peculiar environment, people are looking at what is the end result of this. Are you going to make a living from this? So if you are able to expose them also to the economy of art, when I say economy of art, we are able to tell them the prospects. We are able to expose them to the prospect, inviting artists, successful artists, to be part of their classrooms, to be part of their activities, and they have an interaction with those artists. It becomes something that will blow their mind and be able to help them. And besides that, we can as well try as much as possible to ensure that these children are also brought into the issue of celebration of art. When I say celebration of art, oftentimes we have people, artists who are either having an exhibition, a solo exhibition or whatever. And don't forget that when you're having an exhibition, you are actually coming up with your best. And you are coming up with an idea you want to push across. It is not enough for children to just attend those such exhibitions. They must be guided. When they go to such exhibitions, there are things you want them to see. There are areas you want them to actually to emphasize. So when they go to exhibitions, you also follow them. You also take pain to be the guide. You also take the pain to make sure that they are able to take the best out of that exhibition. So it's not just a matter of taking them out to exhibition or taking them out to watch films, taking them out to theater, allowing them to read the literature, but at the same time, being able to come back and do analysis. After watching film, after watching videos, after reading poems and whatever, let's come back to class. Let's sit together. How do we take from what we have taken or whatever we have studied or we have seen? How do we interpret this into individual forms? Allow them the freedom to use whatever material is available to them. in this environment, we may have problem with materials, but we have local materials we could work with. We should not just insist that it must be painting, it must be this. People will do applique, they could do montage. We can get newspapers, we can get some other materials here that we may not require that children must go home and ask for money. So that at the end of the day, when they produce things, they are happy with what they have produced. I know quite well that there's no way you will not still buy some things, but the teacher could run around to see how you could raise some little fund for the class. If they are involved in such activities, and the teachers know quite well that my contribution as a teacher also is required, then whatever they are able to put together and they are able to connect with their parents, they are able to take such things home, their parents will definitely be interested in what they are doing. Besides this, we can also, like just thinking of out of the box, we can also take the art to marketplaces. When I say taking art to marketplaces, there are people who do not even know, parents who are local parents, they don't even understand what you mean by art. So taking such work to marketplaces may require that we gather some of those who are interested, we organize classes in the marketplace, drawing in the marketplace, doing some painting in the marketplace, let people come around us and ask, what are you doing? Let the parents see the t-shirt, maybe you do a tie-dye within the market at a point in time, in a Saturday. And after the whole show, we give out to some of those marketers, you can wear this. This is your gift for being part of us. This is your gift for being part of the spectator audience. Little by little, people get to understand, I went to market today, somebody gave me this. Look at what I'm wearing, is it good? Can you do this? They will challenge their children. And little by little, parents will be interested in this, in the profession. Without, in an economy that is of ours, in where we have little problems with schools actually being interested in art, in parents being interested in art, in government in being able to fund art, we have so much challenges. And if we just have to make art something that people will be interested in, then we must think out of the box. We must actually think about how to take art to the people and not expecting people to come and do art. These are the things I think art educators must think about. We must continue to look at, specifically for, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the situation in Nigeria. I'm being particular. I'm being particular about the situation we have around here. We must think about how to solve the problems here so that at the end of the day, our children and those who are participating in art will see it as something of a universal language, something they perhaps could also see others from outside and participate. For those who perhaps who are also thinking about visiting, talking about the galleries, talking about going to studios, we must allow the students to have interpersonal interaction with people who have actually made it in art, those who are successful artists. If it is possible for us, just like the technology is giving us today, we can have recordings that they can take home and show their parents, so that at the end of the day, the parents may feel it is really worth it, leaving my child to be part of this exercise. It is worth it to have to spend some little money to add to whatever my child's interest is. Many parents around here only feel that the only profession that perhaps makes that is dignified is when you are in medicine, you are in law, you are in engineering, you are perhaps in other high professions, they call it high professions. But because of the ignorance of understanding precisely what it takes to actually be in art, they don't often support their children to do art. And I think it is high time for teachers, especially in Nigeria here, to think out of the box. It is high time for us to continue to see how we can actually take art out of the classroom, take art to the domain of the parents, take art to the marketplaces, take art to some other new corners of the community. There is what we call community art. Some artists in Nigeria have been doing that, and I praise them so much. There is need for us to go into the community to break even, for the community to actually experience the art, and at the same time be willing to be part of it. This is my submission so far. I will welcome questions or suggestions over this. Thank you very much.
Oh, wonderful one, sir. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation tonight. And we would like to take, I can see Ollie clapping there for that presentation. That was wonderful, sir. And we'd like to take comment now. But before we take the comment, I would like to say One thing we have discussed in the past is coming forth in this presentation tonight, and that is that the teachers, the art educators, has a great role to play in advancing the art advocacy in Nigeria and making art education accessible to the public. That was a wonderful one, sir. I have gained so much tonight again too. And first, before we open the floor to everyone, I would like to ask Ollie this particular question. I saw, though Dr. Ademuleya also mentioned it, having an art club in the school, we also encourage even students that are not art students, like science students and other fields, to come and engage in an artistic activities. So I saw in early presentation the other time the STEAM club. I just want to know, how do you do the STEAM club, Ollie? How do you do the STEAM club in your with the students? What does it entail? How do you bring in I know the STEAM is all about science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. So how do you do it? Do you engage some educators or facilitators outside the field of art? That is my question, Ollie.
Yes, in that setting, when I get the chance to have a dedicated space to meet children or young adults outside of the school day, to create a club. This is a place where we called it the STEAM Club, just so that we could bring in, let's say, composers who are using mathematics or animators who are using repetitive digital mathematics to create something. Yeah, I think it's for also just well done. The talk really hit me on so many levels about guiding the students, whether you're in a cultural setting or you're just in the after school club or going to the marketplace. I love that. I mean, we will get students who are focusing on engineering or chemistry, but we all know in contemporary success, always, not just now, but it requires creative thinking out of the box. And this is experience and time with artists, with engineers, bringing in these sorts of skills. It's not just straight up art making. It is truly, STEAM is one good way to put it, but I think it's key to meet as many professionals and hear about what they're doing for making money or having a career. For example, the Chilean artist who came to visit, I noticed she was doing a tour in America, and so I reached out to her through social media to come to my after school club, and that's where she presented Edward Muybridge and this idea of the subtle movements of the horse. This speaks to so many different levels of the curriculum, but you're absolutely right. To bring it out of the school or outside of school time is very important, to bring in other professionals or get the kids out into the field. But the way that I have done that is to find the space outside of school time or in the school day. Sometimes I'm given a group, they're called advisory. And it's a group of a unique collection of kids that we can think out of the box together. But one important part of the success in a few of the schools I've been in is this concept of always making the process visible. And that might be taking what you do out to a farmer's market and setting up an art table. You're absolutely right. Getting it out so people can witness this expertise. And also not making a sudden move toward children presenting and they have to be a certain way, keeping them immersed in their process so their knowledge is coming out incredibly naturally. And you're seeing how much information they have pulled in this setting. A little bit of an long answer.
Okay, do we have more comments, contribution, questions? We can go ahead and unmute ourselves, or if you want to use the hand icon we can use the hand icon, but if you can't use that, we can just go ahead and unmute ourselves and speak. The floor is open to everyone.
I want to say something. I was taken by the talk. It was very liberating to actually hear the conversation that he opens up. Because one of the things that, as a professional artist, which is something I've been probably since I was 4, I was very focused, and I knew that this was what I was going to do for the rest of my life. There was no other thing. And I don't see kids have that kind of focus because I don't think that they can get into that kind of engagement with themselves. They're forever being told this or being told that as to what they should be, as opposed to what they could be by just engaging themselves. Playing for hours, in your own space, creating something with materials that you found at the house, in your bedroom or in your kitchen table or even outside, is what's going to give you confidence in working with materials and in presenting it first to mom or to dad or to your friends who you're working out with, but then also the conversation that you have, not only the one that you have inner monologue, which I still have today. I talk to myself more than anybody. And if I'm saying how great I am, it's not validated until I show what I've done to people who don't know me, and they tell me what they get from it. And I listen carefully because that's what supports me to doing something else that I'm thinking about. It also opens that conversation for everybody to share. And that's what's going to make everything happen. So this idea of like taking the art out of the classroom, first of all, the classroom should be art all the time. With everything that we do, when we read, when we write, when we draw, when we share, that's art. My speaking voice is singing to somebody, right? Not only to myself. If I'm making sense, then it's saying something and it's communicating something to someone. So every student has that. Every kid has that. We need to give more opportunities to that, which is what you've been saying with your talk, and I love that. I also think that in order to make the spectrum really clear to people, we have to cross-pollinate. We have to say what art does. Art basically captures history of like what just took place, but also what we see, what everyone sees. And so that's a part of class. That goes into literature, that goes into writing new ways of looking at what I'm thinking about. And every student should have that opportunity. And to do it creatively sometimes that's the only voice that a student can work with because they don't understand the other voices. I was a really lousy math student until I had to learn repeat patterns for doing a design for something. Then my language opened up. Then I understood why I have to pay attention to this math. And then it opened up when somebody put a number to the math and then put a $ after it and said, if you do this for a couple more hours like that, you're going to get this. I then perked up and understood a lot more about math, as opposed to just some blank thing on a board where somebody's saying blah, 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 blah. It wasn't blah, blah, blah when they handed me that money that made a difference in my life, because then I can do what I wanted to do. So the power of art, power of understanding how art works is huge. And working in New York, we see it full time all the time. Paulie and I have the benefit of doing that, but we also realize that everyone needs to be awakened to that. And our job is to go into schools and try to awaken those people that forget about that, even though they're reaping the benefits of art every day. They're watching films, they're looking at books, they're seeing magazines, they're buying new records or new albums. Everybody's capturing and paying somebody for something that someone designed. That someone designed it is the thing that we want to point attention to. It's an artist, it's an art team, because there's lots of collaboration, and every one of those people know how to work together to get what it is they need to get out of what they're doing. So thank you for pointing that out there and putting it in the world.
Thank you. Let's take Professor Segun Lude now.
No, thank you. I hope you can hear me well. I don't have an extra mic today, so I'm just using my computer directly. Thank you. Very good presentation. Should I call you Dr. Ademuleya? Thank you so much. It actually got me thinking.
Yes,
and
Dr. Ademuleya.
Thank you. Some of what you said today has been underlined by the points that Larry made just now about, being interested in art. The angle that I was looking at is, apart from the advocacy, and you actually talked a lot about the public relations aspect of the teacher's role. It's almost like you're not just teaching, you're also a public relations person for the arts and art education, telling people why this is important. And you're also public relations to the students too, so to speak. You're the guide, you're the teacher, you're everything. So that's understandable for me, because I've seen this play out in so many instances, even up to university level. Now, one thing that's completely or almost completely missing in the Nigerian educational system, if we pick that as an example, is that we don't have guidance counselors. I never had a guidance counselor. I'm so thankful that my parents were, so to speak, my guidance counselors. And what kind of guidance did I get initially from my dad? Quit art. It's a lazy man's job. That's what he said. But because I was able to prove to him that it actually takes a lot of effort to get art done. I don't know if I've related the story before. He found me one whole weekend from Friday night to when he left on Monday morning that I was working on the same project. I did not leave my room. So he came to my room and he said, well, if this is what you really want to do, make sure you're the best. Of course, there's no best, but that is like a weight off my shoulder. The role of the guidance counselor, whether it's the teacher, the institution, or the parents, it's so crucial in this whole thing. And we haven't even, I don't even know how to advise us to go about it, but to keep preaching, similar to what you've said, let's keep being the public relations person, not just in town, not just in the marketplace, but also with the parents, the institutions, maybe even from when they're in kindergarten, to start telling them, when you spot somebody who's really interested in art, please do not discourage them. It's as important as the sciences, the technology, as the math. But right now, the voices are speaking against it instead of even being neutral. They are, like my dad was. It's a lazy man's job. How do you know that? Well, because most artists that they encountered were asking for funding or for money or for something. So thankfully, like Larry, once I discovered design would actually make you money on a regular basis, I was gone. I'm sorry, but I'm still an artist at heart. You can't have a designer without the artist. So here we are. The counseling and the guidance, it goes a long way in getting the job done, so to speak. That's the part that came to me as, these conversations were going on. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for that contributions. Can we have more comments, questions, or contributions in the house?
I have one comment.
Dr. Kodu, you can go ahead.
Okay. Good day, everyone. And first and foremost, I really want to appreciate our presenters for today. They've done wonderfully well, starting from the first presenter, Holly, and coming to Dr. Ademuleya for that fantastic presentation. And we have really enjoyed ourselves tonight, and knowledge has been added to what we are already aware of. But before, I have about 3 questions I want to bring out tonight, which I'll really be happy if answers are provided for the questions from what has been said tonight. While the presentations were going on, I took my time to jot down some points, which I decided to bring out my questions from. From the first presenter, I appreciate the concept in which she's been using to teach within the classroom. And I was about asking question before Mr. Adeniyi came up with the concept of STEAM club. STEAM club. But the question I want to ask is that how has it been easy for the partner that is working with Ollie to come up with musical instruments in a transformational way by transforming trash into musical instruments? Now, because while she was presenting, we saw a partner who was sitting down and engaging the student. And she was explaining that he has been able to transform trash into musical instruments. That means through the transformation of trash, different musical instruments were produced such that it is now a resource material for those children to be able to get engaged with. So that is my question to her. Then I'll be coming back to Dr. Ademuleya. Though he used Nigeria as a case and because of his own environment and the challenges that artists, educators in Nigeria are facing. And my question is cut out of the points that he raised. Number one is that said something about thinking out of the box. And number two is taking art teaching out of the classroom, bringing it out of the rigidity of the classroom, but making it flexible enough for people who are even been denied of access to art. You'll be able to have engagement with art. And the third one he said is that he said we should not expect people to come into the classroom to learn art, but we should rather take art to them such that they will be able to be engaged with art. So I have three questions which I want to ask. Now, from the concept of theater, we have what we call TFD, which is Theater for Development. And in the course of the explanation and the discourse, the concept of communal art, community art was also brought out. So this is my question. Now, what is the relationship between art for development and community art? If we can have theater for development, which is the theater that is taken to the community to provide solution to identify abnormality within the community, then as well we can also have what we call art for development. So if you are talking about art for development, and when Doctor was presenting the other time, he made us to know that we can also be addressing community art such that the people within the community can also benefit from art. So when we're talking about art for development, art for community development, what is the relationship of art for development with community art? That's the first question. Can I go ahead? Okay.
Yes, please.
I have two more questions.
Right.
The second question. Okay. The second question is that how can community art address the business of art? We brought art to the community. Then how can the community art address the business of art as it was raised within the presentation, that people should not just be taught art just for them to be able to get the knowledge of art, but beyond just getting the knowledge of art within the classroom environment, a lot of people are just learning the art, but they've not really been in tune with the proper development of how this art can be translated into the real business. So how can community art address the business of art? And the last one is, it was cut out from the contribution of Professor Olude when he was talking about counselor, when he was talking about guidance. Then my question is that artists, how can artists see themselves as a mentor to students and as a counselor, instead of relying on the school, instead of relying on the parents, instead of relying on other stakeholders? Because I see artists as well as individuals with strong effect, with strong impact on the student, be it art student, chemistry student, mathematics student, physics student, or even the student in the business aspect of learning. That how can artists be a mentor to students and as well being a counselor to such students? Thank you very much. Those are my questions.
Thank you so much, sir. I believe Dr. Ademuleya and Oli are ready to provide responses to those questions.
Can I go on?
Go ahead,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Then we have Oli
Right.
after that.
Your three questions are good questions. And they are questions that, if well resolved, will help at, the kind of result expected from whatever activity we have tonight. Let me start. Sorry, though you asked Professor Olude the last question, but let me quickly say this. There is this book that says where there is no doctor. I don't know whether you have read something like that before. You want to pick it, Dr. Prof? You see, we we must continue to approach issues based on the availability or whatever is around us to be able to solve the problem. In Nigeria today, the truth of the matter is that you can hardly go to any school and find a counselor. And that is the basic truth. It is there on the curriculum that there will be a counselor in school. It is part of the arrangement within the school structure that every school must have a counselor. But I must tell you the truth, you can hardly go to any school and find a counselor. Even when they employ people as counselors, they convert them into classroom. They become English teachers or whatever, and they don't do the business of the counseling. That is exactly the story we have around there. But you see, between you and myself, you will know quite well that where we don't have counselors, just like where you don't have people understanding art and an artist is becoming a PR by himself, so also we have a situation whereby where we don't have counselors, artists should consider themselves as playing the role of counselors. And how do we do that? I could remember vividly sometimes when some of us were in school, you can hardly have somebody who want to come into an artist room and share rooms together. They don't often like to share rooms with us. They feel that, oh, this man behaves as if he's an extraordinary human being. You understand it? The way he uses things around him or whatever, you are always scared of. Maybe you could use your spoon to become a trowel and things like that. And because of that, they don't often want to share room with us. But I tell my students, if you want to tell the world you are an organized person, start with yourself. Be organized. If you come into my office and it's not organized, and I want to tell you to be organized, how do I tell? What am I saying? For artists, you must present yourself and comport yourself as someone of a dignified profession. It is not this. Look, we have gone beyond when artists would dress as if we are the least of human being in the society. We make it look as if your head is not dreaded, if your shirts are not patched, you are not a good artist. I don't believe in that. I believe that art is a respected profession, and you must present yourself properly so that people can see you and begin to feel, well, I think I can be like you. So for you to be a mentor, because if you know that you don't have people who can counsel in schools and you want people to do art, you must become a counselor. And you must become a counselor in practice, not a counselor in theory, in talking. Present yourself the way you want the students to see you and be interested in you. Comport yourself in such a way that people will think, oh, I also want to be an artist. Some of us were influenced by some of the teachers, perhaps, that taught us. The way they dress, the way they handle pencils, the way they handle their works, the way they make their works look as if heaven and hell depends on it. And if you are able to do that, your students will also see reasons why perhaps they could choose art as a profession. We must be first prophets, first pastor, first counselor of the profession, so that people can see some level of seriousness in this. We have a peculiar environment. We must understand that. And a peculiar environment requires a peculiar treatment. So if you don't have counselors, let us treat it that way. Artists should take it upon themselves, as long as we are interested in this profession, to also take the role of a counselor in practice. Project what you want people to see. That's mine. Number two, you talk about relationship between art for development and community art. Everything about community art is about development. Everything about community art is about development. Development of the mind, development, of the physique, and the total development of human being. You see, everything starts with our thinking. Everything starts with our thinking, what you think. And once we are able to tackle the aspect of the thinking, and people are able to think right, development will be easy. When we talk about community art, we are not just talking about people going to the community, doing painting and taking in their things. No, when you go into community and you practice the art, let the community also have participation in art. Take, for instance, when you talk about performance art, and people go, the artists go through the street and people begin to ask, what is he doing? Is he crazy? Is he a madman? Why is he this way? Why did he dress this way? Little by little, some explanations are given. And the next time they see him, they have some respect. They will tell others, oh, he's not a madman. He's doing this because of this. He's trying to tell that the government is not doing this. He's trying to say this. He's trying to say our society should be like this. They become the advocate. So, and when you talk about that, that is development. Development is not just something physical. Development is inside. Once your mind is groomed, it makes development easy. So when you talk about community art helps us to go into the community in a way that they are able to have first-hand contact with art. They are able to understand that artists are not mad people. They are able to understand that art has prospect. They are able to understand that art is a product. They are able to understand that they also have art in their houses. That the clothes they are wearing is art. You understand? That all the products they have in their hands, the drinks they taking, the juice or whatever, as their art products. Once they are able to see that, they begin to understand that, oh, my son, you could also do this. My son, you can be part of this. My son, if you want to do this, yeah, you can go ahead. But because they don't see, they can't link it together. They can't tell the connection between the Coke bottle and the design on it. You understand? And that man who claims to be an artist, they don't see any connection. But when we take it to the community level, and they begin to see that the shirt I'm wearing, the t-shirt I'm wearing that has some designs is produced by a particular artist. They have seen the children producing it in the community. They are wearing it. They are giving you as a gift. You understand me? Then we begin to see how things will change and development will come up. Talking about the community art and business art is about product. Product. If your product is not getting to the consumer, what are you selling? You are selling nothing. Your product must get to the end use. And for your product to get to the end use, if at the end of your exercise in the community, you have works to display, things for people to pick up, the student whose work is being bought is happy. The man who is buying the work feels great. Do you understand this? Little by little, we begin to see, we value, when you give somebody an art piece, he may not value it. But when he purchases it with his money, he protects it. Definitely will protect it. I have seen situations where you give people you think are learned, you give them artworks. Next time you see it, you will feel like collecting it back. But when they purchase it with their own money, they have respect for it. So when we take the work to the community level and we make it, let them understand that it is not just a fun fair, that you have products At the end of the exercise, the product are displayed. The community interacts with the product. Can I take this? Can I have this? It costs money. But because we are your community, okay, don't worry. Ordinarily, it will have been this so amount of money, but because we are here, take it for so amount of money. The man whose work is bought will feel good. The one who's buying the God will go home and show his people. See what I bought in market today. Some people came to market to do some things, and they did this. They did it right there, and I bought it. And little by little, we begin to extend, we penetrate into, and once people appreciate the work, they will definitely have respect for it. We don't have respect for people things we do not appreciate. It is impossible. Once you don't appreciate something, you don't place value on it. But when you appreciate it, you place some value on it. So to me, we should outgrow the issue of complaining. We should stop saying we cannot do this because the government is not doing this. We should stop talking about the principal is not encouraging me. The parents are not forthcoming. And that is why I said, take it to their doorstep. Go into the community. Let them see it being done. Let them see the process. What do you want to do here? Why do you want to do this? Let them feel it. At the end of the day, when their children are doing it at home, they have some respect for them. Our own parents had the experience of seeing art process. They don't understand it. They don't even know what it is. You want to be an artist? What do they do there? Is it just people who draw? What will you make from drawing? Is it to draw all those silly things you draw, and they don't see any connection with it. But once they understand the process, look at what Professor Olude said. The moment the father realizes that, look, is this thing you are still doing, you're still working on this? Since when? Okay, if you know you want to do this, do it well. Once they have that experience, they will have some value on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
That was a beautiful response, sir. A standing ovation to you, sir. I appreciate that. That was wonderful. I'm joining Dr. Professor Lude to clap for you, sir. And I guess Mr. Dr. Olusegun is also clapping there too. That was a wonderful response, sir. That was
thank you very
brilliant.
Much.
And I want to say thank you, sir. Okay, Ollie, can you do justice to the other questions, sir? Madam Ollie, are you there?
Yeah. Yes, can you hear me? You guys can hear me?
Yes,
yeah,
I can hear you. You can go ahead. Go ahead, please. Go ahead,
you
please.
know, something that keeps coming to mind for me with my experience in the after-school clubs or in these settings is the word practice. So, you know, when Sugun Alude is in his room working for the whole day, or Larry J is working on these projects he can't stop, when the students enter the space that I create for them, whether it's short term or long term, any space I can take over, an old storefront, a place where they can come and practice. And so there is a respectable environment when groups come together that know how to put on the apron, how to set the table with the art, almost like it's a dinner. So a student could look at it and it's not a mess. It's like busting that myth of like artists are all over the place. No, you make it like a ritual and a practice where they come in and there's certain levels expected of setting up, caring for materials. If they're working on a project, especially in the STEAM club or these places where I'm working, where I'm training children to be the teachers, we will stop every now and then this is a social opportunity, not to be grown-ups who are yelling to get order, but in a respectful way, looking around, oh, could we have attention? We have a comment, you know, learning to deal with each other respectfully, and maybe stopping and saying, can anyone mention something about the process right now that's happening? So bringing them into the now and having them articulate, oh, well, I noticed that this side of the table is set up very nicely, and I really like how their project is progressing. So this is what's missing in a large way because of social media, learning to critique and comment and interact in a scholarly way, a respectful way. So it's, for me, it's developing practice, whether we're in public in a public setting or in the STEAM setting, the classroom setting. Now, you asked about the instrument making, and that leads to a very important part of my practice. And Larry and I engage in this with an institution that we both work for. When you're bringing students to another location, to see a theater piece, to see a recital, to meet a working artist who's just in their studio, wherever that might be. In the case of the musical instruments, one thing I try to do every year is curate an exhibit where students are showing side by side with professional artists. And it's a seamless conversation between professional artists and students having a chance to see their work lifted into this setting. So everyone gathered with the homemade instruments. That was a show of many sort of mad professors from around the world who take trash, who take throwaway things and make wind instruments and stringed instruments. And that whole show where the students got to be with these adults making music, you start to see larger spheres open up. Oh, now we're talking about the physics of sound. Now we're talking about sound vibration. Now we're talking about drawing what we hear. Oh, we're making graphic scores. We're drawing what sound looks like. Oh, can we build instruments from an oil can or make a rain stick? And can we, without knowing music at all, can we create a graphic score that we can conduct? This is what artists do. They keep taking the lid off of, you have to be one kind of expert in order to make art accessible to all, whether they're going to study engineering or physics, or it's the creative thinking, it's the creative thinker that is able to bring these projects to the public and begin interacting. But the student is going to feel professional and confident if you're working from a realistic stance of practice. If they do it over and over, the ritual of how to engage with the studio space, when you have visitors or when you go out in public, they are going to be the same way. Here's the tool you need. Here's where you should sit. Now we're ready for our presentation. The kids can translate this just as well. So that's one thing, is getting the students into public settings for either engaging with professional artists of all sorts side by side. Because I mean, that elder composer, Pauline Oliveros, who plays all over the world, she was a groundbreaking musician in electronic sounds. She got as much from being with the youth that day as they did being with her, the questions they asked each other. There's an openness, but there's also this professional level of being in a setting where you're sharing work. Regarding the marketplace and the business of art, I want to go back to the moment in my slideshow when the student was printing the block from the 1800s. I got a big donation of those. It's how they used to make wallpaper. So in this case, we were exploring the idea of a maker space, which became very popular on the internet, on Instagram. The students met a lot of artists who created something that now they're selling to the public or share, a pop-up gallery, right? A pop-up space for a one-day thing. So these pieces of math paper that we found with the prints, my goal is to very quickly teach my students how to be the teachers. This is the winning stroke, when the students can be professional, and it's not me. I'm not a surprise. Me standing in front of the classroom or in front of the people. Here's my students. They're going to do this. No, I don't even want my voice there when we get in public. I want the students to professionally be sharing and exhibiting and explaining and running the workshops. What I did with the math paper and the printing, and this was a big surprise. If you have teachers gathering after school for professional development, they're exhausted. They're like, oh, who's this lady going to teach us like another thing of how to bring art into science? They're tired. They're over it. I'll tell you, my winning stroke was not even showing up. I sent in 5 students who had practiced and were ready to deliver the professional development to the adults. If you could have seen, everyone watches the students come in, they're like, wait, where's Holly? And they're like, we're teaching the workshop today. And they they taught the teachers how to do the print. The point about that print and on all the math paper, there's the students, I said, you've got to do the research on how many bulletin boards these teachers are trying to fill week after week, because the teachers are judged by their bulletin boards, their big displays. So here they are buying borders from China that are like, this one's about music, this one's about math, this one's about this. So the students went around the building, and so they could explain, there's 55 total bulletin boards in the entire school. This is what they measure. And one of the kids, who was a little bit special needs, turned out to be this genius mathematician. And he's saying, and there's one anomaly on the third floor in which the bulletin board is 20 feet long, and you have an opportunity to do this kind of display. And so what they explained was the large marketplace, which is the teachers ordering on Amazon their borders from China and then throwing them out. Here, the children are marketing, they're presenting, they're making the art. And then when the teachers take the orders, they took their orders and they delivered them with the exact amount they would need. Now that is commerce. That is, in a very small way, creating this opportunity. From that moment, which was actually 3 years ago, I've never gone to a professional development myself. I prep my students and they go do it. And if it's in public, I'll be there, making sure they're safe, but I want them to lead the conversation. One other example I want to put forth is artists who have causes, artists who are making art to illuminate a cause. Sometimes these things are very interesting and important to the students. And after the big hurricane in New Orleans, Katrina, the soil became very poisoned in that area. I met an artist at a conference who was doing a project about that. I will say very quickly to anyone who will listen, will you come meet my students? Will you come speak to my students? I live for that. I want them to meet everyone out there. Now, this guy, Mel Chin, he will show up in a 3-piece suit. He was just like you all, making art since he was a little kid. He was from Texas, although he's Chinese, and his parents owned a deli, and they noticed he was shaping presidents' faces in the hamburger for the display in the case. So everyone shows their talent in some way. But what he was doing was called the $100 bill. And he made these templates of dollar bills that would get sent all over the United States, and people would make art on them. And he was collecting them in an armored truck that was run on natural fuel to bring to Washington, D.C. in the amount of money it would take to do this project that would heal the soil. Now that sounds complicated, and it was all adults doing it. And what we did was we created the first student activists to go on the street and teach the public how to make $100 bills. So it was science, it was social justice, it was an art workshop. These are the moments that we are all, I think, talking about, is getting students to have an experience where they're learning the profession, but then they have to do it. They can't wait till they're our age. They have to go out every age, every stage, and be the presenters. And so a lot of spaces, I mean, I know we're on lockdown now, so we have different circumstances, but some of the things we try to do in that particular neighborhood, now there's a lot of parents who won't feel comfortable coming into a traditional gallery. If you're having a show of student work in a white box gallery, a lot of parents, I've watched them over and over, they'll peek in, they'll walk away. And so the more we can innovate art shows in storefronts that are closed, in the windows, with the children installing it, the children being the curators, the more we can monopolize places that become the art show at universities, storefronts, delis, wherever it is. It's got to be the student voice leading the way, showing the public their professionalism, whether they're 4 or 20 years old. This is the transference that I see over and over, is really the miracle of it. That's community art, that's the business of art, that's the economy of art. And within the process of making, every subject matter comes to bear. I worked with high school kids. The large piece I showed you for the setting, which was so beautiful in the end with the tape and the paint, I had a young man come help me measure. We needed the banner to be 20 feet. It was in the moment together, just the two of us, that I realized he had never held a tape measure before. It's art and art making that is going to illuminate the places that can be helpful, value added. So I just wanted to add those little examples of activism and of commerce in raising awareness. And those are some of the ways that I do it. But I've taken myself, unless someone's hiring me absolutely directly, like you show up, you do the professional development, that's one thing. But every chance I get to put my children in the lead, and also the process, immersing them to the level where it doesn't suddenly turn into this. Now we're presenting. Now I'm going to read to you from my notebook. No, I want the ritual and the practice of the art making to be so absorbed that they're, even if they're special needs kids who wouldn't normally stand in front of a room. If you think back to the installation about the overfishing of the sharks in Madagascar, I'm not taking those kids that far out of the element they were in creating. So when the public comes to see them, I keep them working. They are like live artists making. And that's where the transference happens of they are very naturally saying, someone says, oh, what are you making? Oh, well, we're working on this. And then they stand up and they're talking about the larger thing. Artists can mesh together the process in a way that sometimes adults go from here to now we are professional, now we are standing, and you're not seeing the real person in action. So I'm cultivating, my actions are from the ground up. And I see in the end my voice as the least important voice in the room. When it comes time to really show our stuff, it's my students. People who don't agree with art at all are turning around. What? Wait. The students just presented that. That was amazing. Teachers who hated professional development were like, when's our next one? You know, so you get a little more buy-in. I hope that addresses some of the many wonderful questions you asked.
That was powerful. That is awesome. Thank you so much. Another round of applause to you. Well done, Ollie. That was wonderful. Let's just take one or two, three contributions, questions, comments. We can just unmute our mic if we have anybody that want to speak now. Can you just go ahead and unmute your mic? Anybody there? Okay. I saw Dr. Adenle in the house too. Dr. Adenle, we'd like to make comments, sir. Dr. Adenle. Okay. Okay. I saw another woman in the house, Mrs. Abosede. We'd like to make comments, Mrs. Abosede. Olaniba Abosede.
Hello, everyone. Good day. Can you
Yeah,
hear
the
me?
network is better. Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. The network is better on your side tonight.
Okay.
That's
Yes,
wonderful.
yes. Yes, yes. I really want to say a very big thank you to Speaker Oli and Dr. Ademuleya. You've really done a great job today, and I've really gained a lot. Talking
Me too.
about taking heart to the marketplaces. I usually do training. Although I teach adults, but I usually go to secondary schools and primary schools to do art craft works. So, and one of the things I've been trying to one of the things I've been trying to make them do is to have an art club where I can come maybe once in a week to maybe like teach them my skills and all that. Although they've been calling me up to come and do some other craft works, but they are quite skeptical about introducing tie and dye or anything that involves chemical. But so I've been trying to like encourage them to do one or two things about that. And then another thing I've wanted to introduce into the classroom is okay, this one is not even in the classroom. I plan to take artwork to birthday parties. When parents organize birthday parties, I will have a kind of art corner where children can come. They will use material, they will produce different things, and at the end of the day, parents will be able to see that, okay, we can actually produce this even during birthday parties, that it doesn't have to be in the classroom alone. So we can actually have artwork being done during birthday party, or maybe during any, during Children's Day party and stuff like that. So I've been trying to put that in place. I've been talking to school owners and other educators like that, but I've not been able to achieve that, but I'm still pressing on to introduce it to them. And by God's grace, I'm sure they are going to embrace it very soon. So I want to say a very big thank you again to Dr. Ademuya and Oli for the presentation of today. You've really done a great job, and I really appreciate, and I did a lot. Thank you. That's what I just have to say.
Thank you, Mrs. Bosede. Thank you so much. Dr. Adinle.
Yeah. Good evening.
Okay.
Good evening, guest speakers. Good evening, everybody. Am I?
Good evening, Doctor.
Good
evening, sir.
Yeah. We thank God for the presentations of. Unfortunately, I did not listen to any of them because I was in transit on my way to Lagos. So I just reached my destination. So I'm sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes,
we
sir.
can hear you.
Yes, sir. We can hear you, sir. We can hear you, sir.
In the responses of Holly and Dr. Ademuleya, I was able to pick one or two things, and which I want to also reiterate on. Like the questioner said, the difference between the community art and art for the community. Am I right? And in the first, the respondents have really discussed the issue at length. But I want to say that since community is diverse and dynamic, there are different aspects that we can reach in our community art. The theater for the community, dance for the community, music for the community, storytelling for the community, whatever, creative writing for the community, visual art for the community, they are all together as art. But they are using different mouthpiece to broadcast, to propagate art. So that is why I'm saying that, well, those people engaging in dance or theater for the community art, it is not that they are leading, because we also have art in medicine, art in different aspects, like Holly said, the business aspect of art, which borders on the product. Basically, we have two major inroads or two major results. Art as a process, which is to affect like the thinking of the people who are not used to art. They could engage in art, and eventually like the last speaker said, people are skeptical about tie and dye. Well, because of the chemical. But have you put on what's it called, a kind of gallery, mobile gallery, to go and meet them? your vest, the vest you are wearing, if it is so colorfully designed and they know it is textile. Oh, auntie, how did you get this thing? Oh, I love this thing. Oh, already they will begin to be interested. Tomorrow again, you go to that place, you wear another top that is a textile design and all these things, they will begin, their interest will be developed. And so if you can use that one to break into their non-willingness. So what I'm saying in essence is that we can change their orientation through this community art, and that is the process. The process, they'll begin to see how valuable art is for other subjects, other areas, other engagements, how, like Holly said, even those in architecture, those in about 10, 15 years ago, or 20 years ago, I discovered that some people approached me, they wanted to know how to use watercolor. I said, what do you want? They said they wanted to know how to wash, to do washing. I said, you are an architect. Now, it was that time they have been learning these things about art, putting images in their structures, in their drawings, putting cars. They begin to put images in the drawings they make for their client. And this thing surfaced just about some decades back, bringing art into architecture. And so we also need to break our border, break bounds, and go and influence them. I think those are the things I want to say. Basically, art as a process to help these people to come out of the woods, the discouragement, whatever the mindset they have about art, and also to help them in other endeavors. Then, as a product, which is the business aspect that Holly talked about. So, those are the two things I want to just bring in. That community is diverse, and we have to think outside the box and see how well we can approach them. Like the program that is happening in Lagos here by the ex-student of Dr. Ademuleya, it has gone places now, art in medicine, and they have 20 years ago, they wouldn't like it. Doctors will not like it, but doctors are even buying into the program now, using art in the health care system, when they take care of the patients, they are beginning to use storytelling, beginning to use art, beginning to use drawing, beginning to use all sorts of things. So I rest my case here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for that one. Thank you so much for that comment, sir. That was so nice. We have Mr. Oladimeji in the house too. I don't know if Mr. Oladimeji would like to make comment now. Then we go back to Professor Segun Lude. I can see. Okay.
Hello.
Can go ahead.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Hello, this is
Hello.
This is Mr.
Okay, you can go ahead. Please go ahead. Please go ahead. Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
Yeah,
you can go ahead.
Really, I don't have any other questions. I've gained a lot. I just kept on listening. It looks as if today is a listening time for me to get more experience from my fathers, especially the doctors in the house, most especially Dr. Ademuleya, was my lecturer, and I really enjoy all what he discussed. In fact, I jotted down a lot of things because I have interest of organizing an art club. And, most of my complaint is from the principal. Maybe the principal is not interested. But I cannot come or go at the back of the principal by going to the market, by going to the doorstep of the parents, so that they can love art. Really, today is just my special day because I wrote a lot of things down to gain from my doctors and prof. A kudos to my doctors in the house. God bless you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for that comment, sir. Can we have Professor Segun Lude now?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Thank you.
sir.
I just thought of this reminder for myself, and I hope it helps everyone, that art is like the trunk of the tree, maybe the root and the trunk of the tree. And out of art, we have artists, we have sculptors, we have designers, and we all branch out. In fact, at some point, on one of the branches, we have curators. We have those who actually are restoring art. So from this trunk, it goes out and it becomes something really big. The purpose of art education is to create, and Holly has mentioned that, Dr. Ademulaya has mentioned that. I think most of the previous speakers have mentioned that. In Larry's case, he talked about the use of technology in that aspect. We're creating a sort of awareness in the young minds or the new artists to understand, recognize what art is. Not all of them will become the painters or the sculptors. So I always have to remind myself that this is a big topic. Art and the education of art is not just for bringing artists and textile artists out, but for a variety of art-related industry, if you want to use that word. So, to not forget that, that some of them will never draw, beyond what they do in your classroom, but they will never forget because they might become the commissioner for art one day, and they have a large influence on what happens in the educational system. So that's one thing. And there was the question of mentorship. Just speaking from experience, the industrial attachment that we had when I trained in Nigeria was supposed to be a form of mentorship. You were sent to a company for 2 months or 3 months. I don't know how long they do it now, but for the summer months, you were working with people in the industry. You were learning from them. It was like a part apprenticeship, part mentorship program, part everything. It was very useful for me because when we go back to school for the next year, everything I did was just like times 10 because now I've learned what the industry needs. So that kind of formal mentorship is something that we should consider. And then, of course, there's the more informal mentorship that we think a student can approach a professional and they have a more informal relationship. Oh, this is what I'm doing. This is what I want to become, where the professional will sort of mentor them through their career or through their studies. And then the third type of mentorship that I would want to talk about, Holly has examples galore. Larry has examples galore. Even Olusegun Adeniyi has examples. You have the children teaching each other. You have the students relating to one another. I will tell you as a parent, and I use a lot of stories in what I do. As a parent, my first child, we put everything into her. The second one came along, it was like, whatever. The last one, we just tell the older kid, go tell your brother. we were like hands-off parents. So in every profession, I believe sometimes we get to a certain level where our thinking is even different because we've gone through certain experiences. But getting the students to mentor other students, like maybe one grade or one level below, I think it's priceless because they're still speaking the same kind of language. I remember the year that I realized that I couldn't use my examples in class anymore. I was talking about a rotary phone. This was 4 years ago. None of the students in that class had ever used a rotary phone. And I'm like, okay, let's move on. So we went on to other examples. So I've basically, if I didn't keep up with technology, I would age out of the system. You understand what I'm saying, right? My experience is still there. I still have my skill, but the younger students were interpreting what I was saying, while the older students were interpreting for the younger students what I was saying. And they go, oh, you mean those things were for real? Of course, it's not just an icon on your device. So that was a shift for me, to move on. So like we have to keep these things in mind as we go on, that get those young ones to mentor to the younger ones, and it's anyway, that's where I'll stop. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir. In fact, I believe this. I don't want to make exaggeration. This actually has been my best time on Art Educator Hangout, and I want to say thank you to our presenter tonight, Oli and Dr. Ademuleya. Thank you so much. Now it is about 3 minutes to 10, and we have spent about 2 hours. I think it's high time we leave. Probably we can continue this conversation next week, and we can take more comments next week and questions. Though we have another presenter who happen to be Dr. Ademuleya student, way back at University of Obafemi Awolowo, and we'll be having that presentation next week. Probably before we kick off that presentation, we can take more comment. And I hope Aoli will join us next week, and Dr. Ademuleya, to start from there, because we have to go now. We have to say goodbye, good night tonight, and bye to everyone. This is about 2 minutes to 10, and thank you so much for making our time tonight to present to us. A standing ovations to our presenter tonight. Thank you, and God bless you. Bye bye, everyone. We can unmute our mic and say goodbye. We can say unmute our mic and say goodbye. Bye bye. Good night.
Good night,
Good
everybody.
night.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye,
Good
Rita.
night.
Thank you.
Good
Yeah,
night.
good night.
Bye,
We
Barry.
can press the red button and leave. We can press the red button and leave.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Good
Bye.
night. Thank you.
Good
Bye
night.
bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Professor Shegun Lude. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Kodri, for joining us tonight. Thank you so much for your question. Mrs. Olaniba, thank you. Rachel, we didn't get to, probably, I hope Rachel will join us again next week.
Yes.
We should, okay, so as he can also make contribution and comment. So bye bye, everyone. Bye
Bye-bye.
bye. Bye
Good
bye.
night.
Thank you.
Bye. Yes.